welcome to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating and how to navigate through it. Today, I have Dr. Robin Buckley. She helps high-achieving individuals thrive in their careers and relationships. She is an author, professional speaker, and cognitive behavioral coach who works with executive women and high-performance couples. Her proprietary coaching model uses a business framework and cognitive behavioral strategies to support clients in creating and executing concrete strategic plans to develop their careers and relationships. That was a mouthful, Dr. Robin. How are you?
Nice to meet you, William. I'm glad to be here.
No, it's my pleasure. So, Robert, tell us, how did you get here? What was your journey like to become a coach and help people in their careers? What was that journey like?
Yeah, I was trained in clinical psychology, and after doing traditional mental health for years, I really wanted to work with people in a more proactive, preventative approach. And so simultaneously, I got my certificate as a coach. And the work that I did focused around working with executives, C-suite, women in leadership positions. And the more I talked to them, the more I realized that it really was a great transition to use what they were good at in their professional lives and apply it to their relationships. And so I have a model for coaching couples that is based on a business framework, which creates logic and objectivity and strategic thinking around the relationship, which really supports how these women execute themselves at work, and now they can apply it at home.
Wow, that's amazing. And, and today's a great topic, right? Why powerful women are scary. And we definitely want to get into that. Putting my 2 cents worth, is it possible that some men that might not match on the financial scale to a woman, that some men get intimidated by that powerful woman that's an executive, a CEO, as the new saying now, Dr. Robin, boss babes. I've been hearing that all the time. Is it something like that maybe some men are intimidated? Is it more on the financial aspect, or is it a little bit more than that?
No, I think that is really true, William, that there are some men, and it's because I think that those men are trapped in the societal stereotype of what a man should be, which is what's also holding back women, the societal and cultural expectations and norms around what our roles are. And so the traditional role for men were as the breadwinners and the ones that were the financial contributors for comfort and safety of the family. And so when we flip anything away from the norm, it is uncomfortable. And so these men are trapped in what they were raised to believe, what society tells them, they're supposed to be strong and objective and the financial contributors. And all of a sudden when their significant other is earning potentially a lot more than them, it's uncomfortable. And without a conversation about it, to let it out in the open, to acknowledge it, it just gets, squashed down, and that doesn't serve the relationship at all.
Because I started noticing more, depending if I'm reading an article or listening to other podcasts, that some of these women are showing some type of masculine energy because, more and more women are going to college. That's what I read compared to men. I don't know the statistic, but I know more women are in college. Maybe you could add to that. So when you do have someone that makes more money than you, and I dated someone that was an executive for her own business and all that, and I'm going to be honest with you, Dr. Ram, it didn't bother me at all. In fact, I was proud because I was like, wow, this woman's in the same industry, which, on the side I do real estate, and that didn't bother me. And we never talked about money. We never discussed it. Maybe that's why I felt comfortable. So how do you get around that topic, though? When you do talk about it, is it a woman should bring that up? Or, because most men don't want to bring that up because they might be scared or, feel intimidated to bring that up. I don't know. What do you think?
So again, I'll go back to kind of the model that I created. I think, in my perspective and my expertise, is that a lot of couples don't have the conversations that are necessary very early in their relationship. And so one example of what could help is defining the roles within the relationship. And I use titles and roles from business. So who's the
Mm.
CFO in your relationship? Meaning who is good with numbers, passionate about numbers, good with money, and wants to head that area of their life up. Doesn't mean that they're in charge of everything and make all the decision. It just means
Right.
that they have the overarching umbrella perspective. They come back to the board, which is their significant other, to then provide, kind of the report out, get feedback, be able to make decisions moving forward together. And most couples don't do this. They don't outline, okay, what are all the areas of our life that needs to be covered,
Mm.
and who is the point person for each? Again, point person, not that they are in charge of everything, but the point person. And that's what undermines a lot of relationships, because then there's
Mm.
confusion about who's taking care of what. Things fall between the cracks. And in this specific case, William, there's not a conversation of, okay, so I'm the primary breadwinner, and I hate that term actually. I'm the primary financial contributor,
Right.
but you're the secondary. And if we lose the secondary, that is bad, because maybe the primary isn't enough to sustain the way the couple wants to live. So it's not qualifying who's better or worse. It's just saying, okay, just from numbers, just from concrete numbers, yes, I earn more, but your contribution is important, whether it is actual financial contribution or your time, which if that was out in the world outside of the home, there'd
Yeah.
be some kind of financial contribution. So it's monetizing what happens in the relationship in a way that, so, okay, maybe someone makes a little bit or a lot less, but maybe they have more time because they're more flexible in their schedule. Well, the time that they're using to do things for the house and the relationship, if we monetized it, guess what? Probably be equal to the primary breadwinner's actual take-home salary. So I think there's those kind of conversations that, if we can talk about them objectively, it creates strategy for the relationship, and it brings down the intimidation, it brings down the disconnect, and opens up the opportunity for these roles not to be so concrete and based on outdated societal norms.
Yeah, I like what you said, to have a defined role, because like you said, maybe someone is the primary income earner,
Thank you.
for lack of a better phrase. But someone could be, the man could be, okay, I'm the handyman, I could fix this, I could fix
Right,
that. Hey, I don't mind cooking once in a while. So like you said, I love what you said about the defined roles.
right.
But yeah, go
I was
ahead.
going to say, and if we had to hire a handyman to do the work, if we had to go out to eat because we're both working, crazy hours, we're saving, we're keeping that money within the relationship. So you're,
Right.
in this case, the man cooking or doing the handyman work, that's actually money to calculate. Okay, what would we have to put out? And now we don't. So that's actually money to calculate into
Right.
that secondary earners, baseline. And again, I don't think couples do that.
Right. Do you feel that most men just don't want to approach the subject, or they don't want to get involved in a relationship where, they find out, or they know that the woman is an executive and they're a 9 to 5er, which is nothing wrong with that, but they might work, at a hospital or a warehouse. You know what I mean? In your coaching and in your experience, have you seen most men just back away from women like that because they want to be the income earner?
That's a great question, William. I don't know about most men. I think
Okay.
that there
How
are
about
definitely,
like a small percentage?
I think it's more than a small, but yes, I do think that there are men that are still, again, it's they're trapped in that standard perspective of the norm for men. And instead of, like you said, being proud of and supportive of, and realizing when they support their significant other, in this case, women, it contributes to the relationship overall when there's less pressure on the woman to do everything, the traditional norm stuff, and now her high earnings
Mm.
career. She can be who she really is instead of just trying to do everything that society throws at her. Now he is fostering her satisfaction and happiness, which fosters the relationship's satisfaction and happiness, which will make him happy and satisfied.
Right.
So it is stepping back and saying, and what I try and help couples do is step back and say, what is supporting the relationship? Not necessarily even supporting each other, just the relationship as an entity, as a
Mhm.
business. How can you contribute to supporting it? And that's where we start to realize that every role is important and
Mhm.
every piece is important. It doesn't matter who's doing it.
Okay. Now, another question I would like to ask on the women's side, when they find out that they earn more than a man, are they okay being the top earner themselves and having the man, maybe it could be half of what they earn. I'm just throwing numbers at you, three
Mhm.
quarters, half, whatever it could be.
Mhm.
Are more women open to relationships like that, or is that considered for a woman dating down?
Yeah, my experience, so certainly doesn't cover every woman, but my experience is that the majority of
Yeah.
women are okay with that as long as their significant other is is driven, whatever that looks
Uh,
like. So driven to take over all the household stuff. And he's a stay-at-home parent or a stay-at-home spouse, but does everything. And she doesn't have to worry about anything. Or, God forbid, I can't even believe teachers make so little, but he's a teacher, but he is so good at his work and he devotes so much time to being the best teacher he can. I think it comes down to drive for most women, and the drive that their significant other is demonstrating in whatever role he has in his career or in the relationship. There's a lot of biological and evolutionary theories around, why women are attracted, seem to be attracted to men who make a lot of money or make more money, and why men are attracted to women who, might look like they'd be better mothers or better children. And I
right.
love the evolutionary theories, but I don't think they necessarily hold true in our modern day society, where there's nuances and variations. And then when you add in, any kind of diversity issues, like around, LGBTQ families, or how families don't look all the same,
Right.
it's great to open our minds to saying it can work lots of different ways. As long as it works for the people in that relationship, that's all that matters.
Right. So the biggest thing we, as a man or as a couple, is to make sure you communicate, define the roles. The man could be driven in terms of helping around the household, or like I
Yes.
said before, hey, I'm a handyman, or I'm not cooking today, but let's eat out, whatever.
Right.
There's ways that a man could contribute
Absolutely.
if he lets his ego down a little bit.
If he drops the standardized norm of what a man is about.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Now, is for, I think for older men, that might be past 50, 55, 60. I think that might be, uh, and I'm speaking for myself because I'm in that age range. Like I said, it didn't bother me because for me personally, I never cared what a woman does for a living. I'm just happy that, we like each other, we're together, and that's how I feel. I never cared.
Mhm.
Now in this demographic of millennials, in your coaching or in your being out there, so to speak, has can a man at that's 25, 26, 31, 35, can they evolve, or are they? Yeah, go ahead, because I
Yeah.
feel that the millennial men are more
Mm.
likely to fight that, but I could be wrong. That's why I'm asking
No,
you.
no, millennials are amazing. Like I think every generation has its pros and cons, or is, things that are good or bad about them. I don't think it's like, oh, the younger generation is, so horrible. Nope, every generation has its ups and downs. But the millennial generation is amazing. And the older Gen Zs that we see coming into the workforce, is they don't follow the traditional norms. They
Mm,
they they are very comfortable not doing things the way they've always done. And I am so impressed with them for that. They're shirking the idea that a commitment in a relationship is about marriage. Good for them. Like, figure it out. What works for you? They're disregarding the idea that men have to do certain things and women have to do certain things in a way that the generations before them did
right.
not so overtly push back on. And I
Yeah.
love that about them. And I think that then you were talking about the generations over age 50. I think it's the millennials that are getting their parents, because that's basically
R-
how it plays out,
Right. Right.
to challenge their own thinking and to think about things differently. I have a millennial son. He's 28, and my husband is 55.
Okay.
And my husband is incredibly supportive and does not fit into a lot of the stereotypes, but sometimes his thinking goes down the more traditional role. And he will have conversations with
Yeah.
our son who will say, Dad, that's not how it is anymore. And I'm not saying my husband just, oh, okay, great. I mean, he has to have the conversation repeatedly, but that's what I love about the younger generation is they push back. And if they are articulate in how they have the conversations and are not just looking for a fight, it can allow people our age, William, to
Yeah.
think about things differently and at least consider it, if not change our mind, but at least think about it.
Okay, we're talking with Dr. Robin Buckley. Today's topic is a good one. Why powerful women are scary, and I think, I mean, you had it right on hand. I think it's sometimes the traditional values that, we might have taken from our grandparents or our parents that, the man has to be, the number one. They got to make all the rules. They got to do all the financial income earning, so to speak. And women should, I hate to say it, and I don't want to sound sexist, know their role. But like you said, this generation definitely has changed because, again, what I'm reading, what I'm seeing, especially millennials, yeah, most men are definitely open to having their women make more money. They're okay with it. So again, the always the key is the communication. If you deal with couples that are over 50, how is that conversation going to compare to someone that might be like your son who's 28, compared to someone that might be in their 50s, are stuck, back in the 60s, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, actually, my conversations are very similar with
Okay.
regardless of the age of my couples. And I think it's because we talk about their relationship like a business. So it does allow for them to think about their relationship in um, in a more objective way. So there isn't that emotional pull, there isn't that distraction of emotions in the way we talk. So when we talk about business, it doesn't matter if you're 20 or you're one of the couples I work with is almost 80.
Oh,
Is
wow.
a business is a business. It's the same terms, it's the same approach.
Right.
And once they learn how to step back from the emotionality and subjectivity of the relationship and talk about it as if they were at work, it really does frame the conversation in a way that it reduces a lot of the biases, a
Yeah.
lot of the stereotypes, because they want the success of their relationship just like they want their business to be successful. So there's no room for bias and stereotypes in business, and there isn't
Exactly.
room for that
Right.
in a relationship.
Okay. No, I love that. I love that. All right. So, Dr. Robin, is there a few steps that a man can take, or you could tell us, to ease their ego in a bit? And I love that you're laughing. That, hey, it's okay that if a woman makes money, because again, you are contributing, might not be financially, but you are contributing in other ways. Is there a couple of steps that you would recommend for a man, to let his ego, be put to the side, if my question made sense at all?
It does. And I honestly, to challenge what you asked me a little bit, William,
Sure.
I think it's about really, it's always about the couple. It's not about one person doing something,
Mm,
it's a couple making a decision together. So to give you a concrete strategy, I have every single couple that works with me start by creating a mission statement, because
mm,
at work and every organization that's successful, there is a mission statement because it keeps people unified on the same direction. It gives them kind of that North Star or compass of where the organization is going. So why don't we do that in our relationships? Why don't we
mm.
start with a mission statement? Because and I'll use your words, when a man's ego gets in the way,
Yeah.
he can look at the mission statement and use it as a dynamic tool of, okay, is what I'm saying or doing or thinking contributing to the mission of our relationship? If it
Mm,
is, great, keep doing it. If it's not, time to step back and say, okay, how can I change what I'm thinking, doing, or reacting to so that it is contributing to the relationship? So it isn't just about him checking his ego or changing himself. It's simply asking a question: is what I'm doing supporting the relationship or hindering the relationship? Just as you would at work, like is
wow.
me blowing off my daily activities contributing to the mission of the organization that I believe in, or is it hurting it? And I would hope that if it was hurting it, you'd change your decision of how you're spending that day. Same thing in a relationship. So a
Right.
mission statement is when I have done other interviews, they'll say, "What's the one thing?" And I'm like, "That's the one thing. If they do nothing else, make a mission statement and make it together, obviously, so that it becomes something that you carry forward." I had a couple. Some people put it on their wall. Some people, put it on post-its on their computers, wherever. I did have a couple, and I'm not recommending this to your listeners, but I did have a couple tattoo their mission statement on their arms. And they
That's a
said,
little bit too far, but I get it.
and they missed the point that sometimes your mission statement evolves, but
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
They just were like, "This is where we're at, and this is what we want to always remember." I'm like, "Okay, that's great.
It
Post-its
works,
work
yeah.
too, but that's fine."
Yeah. So I love what you said. Couples make a mission statement together. Now, because if you do talk about it, and since I've been doing this podcast for the last few months, everybody I interview is always communication. It seems like that is the number one key to everything going
Yeah.
forth. And whether you're starting out as a couple or you've been together for 5 years, is always to communicate. And I think I never heard that before, but I love doing the mission statement, because again, and I also love that you said define the roles, because like I said, if the woman is a top income earner, there's no reason why a man can't contribute different
Right.
ways. And that's what and it's a couple, we're together in this and you know what, there's some women that could contribute more to a man's income, in terms of maybe she's more of a business person, but you know what, he wants to learn about business. Again,
Right.
I'm sorry that I keep on using the word ego, but like I said, as I grew older, what can I tell you? If you put it to the side and say, "Hey, I'm willing to work with you. This is, this benefits both of us."
Yeah.
And
And
at the end of the day, that's the key. It benefits
right.
both of us.
It is. And I think a lot of times when people talk about ego, I think a part of ego is just kind of the way you being a person
Yeah.
has learned to be, has been conditioned to be, and that contributes to their ego because they're locked into this certain way of thinking and behaving. And when all of a sudden something is different, we might say their ego is bruised because now it feels personal. So again, if we can remove that subjectivity, have them step back, then it's protecting the ego, or allowing space for them to relearn a new way of thinking, a new way of
Mhm.
interacting with their significant other. And again, always going back to, do I want to stay the way I've always believed and I'm not going to budge? Or am I going to leave some room for conversation,
Mhm.
communication, to try something different? And of those two options, which supports the mission of our relationship?
Right. No, I love that. Anyway, first of all, Dr. Rob, I want to thank you so much for being on People on Dating. I really appreciate it. And before I let you go, talk about some of your books. I think you wrote 4 or 5. Did I get that right?
I have 3 that are already
Okay.
published. So the
Well,
first one,
you got like another 5 or 6 more. So go
I
ahead.
do. I do. That's the problem, William. Um, so I have one called Voices from the Village. It's about advice for girls on the verge of adulthood. It was a survey that it was supposed to be just for my friends and family. It ended up traveling the world through just emails and that sort of thing. So it's just a great compilation. I
Mhm.
wrote a children's book about dealing with anxiety and negative emotions. That's my most recent one. It's called
Okay.
The Thinking Spot. And then I wrote a somewhat boring research book, but it was a collaborative effort with some really intelligent colleagues of mine about research and developing research. And then the last one, that's 2 that are in process. I am writing a book about
Okay.
my model about couples coaching that should be out maybe next year, called Marriage LLC.
Oh, I
And
love that. Great name.
I know, I love it too. And then my last one is similar to Voices from the Village, but it's Voices Through the Glass Ceiling. So it's women who are in the professional world and their advice to young women about to enter their careers.
No, I love that. That's great. I'm looking forward to that. And talk more about your coaching.
Oh, I do executive coaching and couples coaching, which I've referenced, throughout our
Sure.
conversation. And if people are interested, they can find it both opportunities through drrobinbuckley.com. So all one word, no period. And it talks a little bit more about both approaches in terms of individual work to develop your career and transitions in your life that affect your career through the executive coaching, as well as the couples coaching, which I think your audience has learned a lot about in
Oh,
our
yeah.
conversation today.
Sounds good. And if somebody want to get in contact with you, what's the best way?
My website's a great way, and they can also find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, and God help me, William, my 17-year-old teenager convinced me to go on TikTok, but I don't, according to
Okay.
her, do fun videos. I just do educational videos.
All
So
right, I'll definitely put that on the show notes. Well, first of all, Dr. Robin, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us, and
thanks,
thank
Mike.
you so much.
This has been a blast. Thanks so much.
Yep, my pleasure. Bye-bye.